Welcome, everyone. I am pleased to welcome you to the ICTF Vectren webinar, How to Mitigate Global Credit Risk at Scale, an interactive workshop for enterprise businesses. We are honored to have Vectren as one of ICTF's annual sponsors. I want to thank them for their continued support. I would also like to welcome our Vectren speakers today, Ali Kidway, Product Implementation Manager, and Nikki Sneed, Director of Marketing and Communications. This webinar will last right around 60 minutes. We'll have a question and answer period at the end. If you do have questions throughout, please put those in the text chat box and we'll get to them at the end. With that, let's get started.
All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome. So I am, as Beth said, Nikki Sneed. I am going to be sort of your moderator today, and I will be keeping an eye on the chat for all of those questions that come in. Ali is going to be the speaker, and at the end of the time, pop in any questions that you have. If I see any that are relevant to the slide that we are currently on, I will ask Ali, but mostly we're going to save all of those until the end of the presentation. I'll be storing all those up and I will be moderating. So thank you all for joining How to Mitigate Global Credit Risk at Scale. Today for our agenda, what we're going to do is, first of all, I'll introduce Ali and myself a little bit. I'll tell you a little bit about Vectren, and then we'll dive right into the presentation. The big points that we're going to hit today is all about the globalization of business, how it comes with risk in unfamiliar territory, considerations to mitigate risk, and then actionable strategies for international business credit. The actionable strategies part is going to come with not only takeaways for you, like key takeaways that you can walk away and implement today, but we're also going to show you what this looks like from an electronic point of view. We're going to walk you through some of the benefits that implementing automation can bring to the table, and we're also going to show you what this looks like in real time using Vectren. So yeah, then we'll have our Q&A like I mentioned. So introducing Vectren, let's go ahead and dive into it. Vectren itself is an industry leader in SaaS automation. We have been in the industry since 2010. We literally are all about automation. We are here to make your lives easier. We're here to leverage the power of automation to make you more productive. In our time, we have reduced credit application process by 90%. We've increased productivity for our clients by 60 to 90%, depending on the industry. We have cut the cost of collections. I mean, this is like what we do. This is our bread and butter here. So this is Vectren. This is why we're speaking on this topic. When it comes to credit risk, we are all about leveraging automation to make sure that we are using the power of the technology in front of us to mitigate the risk as much as possible and help you make more informed credit decisions. So that's Vectren. And then Ali is our Product and Implementation Manager. Ali has been with Vectren for coming up on 5 years, and his whole thing here at Vectren is to understand common problems, and he finds opportunities. He is the problem solver here at Vectren. He works closely with our customers to turn any sort of challenges that they may face into opportunities for advancement. This is like, to date, Ali has led over 50 digital transformation products in the area of credit collections and accounts receivable. He's had more than 10 projects just for Fortune 500 companies. So, and he works really closely. I think he has standing meetings with clients every day of the week. That is all that Ali does. He's our problem solver. Me, on the other hand, I am all about listening to the clients and trying to make sure that I'm bringing to the table answers to any of the roadblocks that they may be meeting and making sure that the product is as client-centric as it possibly can be. I am here to foster relationships with our credit bureaus, our partners like ICTF, credit management leaders in the industry, and our clients. I have been in marketing, communications, and public relations for the last 12 years, and my whole goal here at Vectren is to keep it moving forward and to keep it client centric. So that is us. And we are now going to go ahead and dive in. I'm going to turn this over to Ali. He's going to dive into your actual presentation today. And again, if you have any questions, please pop them into the chat. I will be watching.
Perfect. Thank you, Nikki. And, as Nikki said, Nikki and Beth said, thanks everyone for taking the time to speak with us today. We'll be going through quite a few items here today, mostly on, why companies are moving towards globalization, what the benefits are of globalization, as well as how you can, what are the risks of globalization and how you can manage those risks. So we'll be going through that. As Nikki said, please pop your questions up in the chat. If they're relevant at the time, we can answer them, or we can stop for questions at the end. So yeah, we'll get started here and dive right into it. So companies need to be able to think globally to survive in this day and age. As you can see from some of the stats here, almost half of all companies have some sales that come from overseas. 18 US-based companies were included in the 2020 World Investment Report for the top 100 multinational companies. A lot of globalization is also the need to be operating as efficiently as possible. We'll get into some of that. There are obviously cost advantages to operating globally. And with that, obviously comes a lot of risk, but you want to be able to find a good balance between that. You also want to be able to reach out to your extended customer base. Your products may be well received in other parts of the world, and you want to be able to reach out to those customers. And then also, finally, in some cases, expansion makes more sense versus making a new product line in oversaturated areas. So we'll get into that as well. So what are the benefits of globalization? Why exactly are companies moving towards globalization, and why have they continuously been moving towards globalization? New technologies in different parts of the world allow you to, produce products faster, have a better delivery system, better supply chain. Companies want to capitalize on that. You do not also want to have all of your eggs in one basket. So you want to have different economies that you play in, where you're able to sell your products and then not have to depend on a single economy where something goes wrong. You're stuck there and you really aren't able to do anything because your business is dependent on the economy itself. There are like higher margins in those areas as well, as we were talking about. In different parts of the world, you'll be able to produce your product for cheaper, so you'll be able to sell it at a higher margin. It also creates a lot of employment opportunities. Talent is a big factor for a lot of different companies. So one of the things that we hear from our customers is the diversity in talent, right? You want to have a lot of different people with different backgrounds in one room, so to be able to have different perspectives from those people. I mean, we see that at our own firm, different people from different nationalities or different regions that bring different perspectives to solve different problems. And that actually, even though, of course, companies will tell you that that is, the cost and the opportunities for technology are great, talent is a big motivator for these companies, especially to drive innovation. So companies, try to hire in different areas and then bring those people together so that they can solve common problems. And then, overall having a good supply chain system, so you're able to get your products out anywhere in the world. As we were saying, companies have been moving towards globalization for a long, long time. It has grown in the recent years as well. So you can see, in the 80s, it wasn't that much, but as you can see, companies are moving more towards, emerging markets, excluding China, where before it was really just developed regions. And of course, we are, as everybody may be aware already, we are increasing our dependence on China. But apart from all that, even, we are moving to a lot of different markets, new markets where we can find opportunities, whether these may be markets in Africa, Europe, Asia, where companies are trying to find different types of opportunities that suit their business needs. I think a lot of the motivation for doing that are some of the benefits that we discussed earlier: cost, talent pools, technology, supply chain, and mostly to foster innovation. If I'm able to solve problems in different countries, I can use that to solve problems for my customers around the world. And companies have been seeing that and are wanting to capitalize on that. So that's some of the reasons, as well as some of the landscape of what companies are doing. But with this comes risk, right? It's not like you will enter a new country and everything will be exactly how you want it, and there will be no risk at all. You are entering unfamiliar territory, uncharted waters. You need to be able to have an understanding of what the risk will be, specific to your business as well as specific to that region or country. You want to identify those risks, see how that impacts your business, and then mitigate those risks. So that's basically what the next piece of the presentation is going to be like. And we will talk about what those risks are, how you can identify them, how you can manage them and mitigate them so that you can operate efficiently in these markets and reap the benefits. So as we were saying, new areas bring new risk. As you expand your client base, you move into new countries. If you're not well prepared, you won't get paid. What would cause this risk? There's a lot of things. The most common one, there could be political instability in a market that may cause your company to operate, that may cause adverse impacts on your company's operations. So there's not really a lot of things that you can do for political instability, but it is wise to have an understanding of where a region is in that spectrum, and then also have an understanding of where that region will be in a few years. Being able to assess these political factors, what are the major political factors in play in that region right now, and how we can manage that. So we'll get into some of that in a bit too, but I mean that's quite a big reason. We've seen even from some of our customers where they've had to exit markets recently due to changes in world dynamics. Very recent example is Russia after the US imposed sanctions on them, or other countries over time that have had this. So you never know what will happen, and you have to obviously follow the laws of the country that where your headquarters are. So also need to understand what the relationship of the US or whichever country you operate in is with those countries. The other big risk are fluctuation in currency rates. So this will really get into, and we've solved this problem quite a bit for our customers. But how do you manage fluctuations in currency rates? How do you report on it, right? How do I even collect on it? Do I need to convert everything back to my reporting currency? Do I charge customers in transaction currency or reporting currency? How do I take payments even in what currency? So these are some of the items that need to be thought of, and we'll get into that as well. Reporting, from what we see at least, is a big demand from our customers. So they need a robust solution where they can accurately figure out when they need to report on what, be able to manage these currency rates effectively for different countries at any given time, whether it's an internal currency exchange rate that a company will manage. So we have customers that will manage their own currency tables, and then they will be able to use that where they do the calculations like that, or you have customers that may take it from an external source as well. But it's important to be able to define those items, right? Do I want to use my own currency table? Do I want to get it from an external source? What are the pros and cons of doing that? The next is, of course, communication barriers, right? And that is not just for the language that you may speak, it is also for the culture that you are going into. So one of the things, obviously, we look at this from two aspects. We look at this from the aspects of just the language itself. So you obviously want to hire people that are able to communicate with different members of your company in different regions. So maybe having people that can understand a variety of different languages. But you also want to be cognizant of the fact that you may not be able to do that at all times. So what is the strategy for hiring people in those areas? What are the trade-offs, right? What can I do? What can we do to make sure that communication is not affected? And the other item, which is actually very important, is the culture, the work culture. Work culture is very different in different countries. For example, I can tell you a very good example, at least from what we see, right? Here in the US, it's very different from how it was in my home country, for example, from India, or it is in Europe or Asia. There are certain nuances that one needs to be aware of, how work is distributed, how you talk to different people to get work done. All of these things, they play a major role, and you want to be able to have an understanding of these things so that you're able to foster the right culture, right? You don't want to have, you obviously don't want to go into a country and not understand their work culture, but also have an understanding of how you can marry that work culture with your own company culture and create an effective environment. So that's quite important. We see a lot of companies fail because they're not able to understand that. They don't put a lot of emphasis on it, and they basically dismiss it, where it comes back to haunt them. So you want to have a good understanding of the work culture and the communication barriers. Excuse me. And then finally, availability of quality credit information. So information is not readily available in a lot of different countries. So the process for evaluating credit and credit risk will change based on the country that you're in. People here in the US, we've been a little spoiled. We have a lot of data on customers, for most cases, but that may not be the case in different parts of the world. You may be relying on unaudited financials. You may be relying on word of mouth. Or at times you may not be relying at anything at all, and you have to make a judgment call. I mean, these are things that we know that customers have to do in the absence of quality credit information. So how do you manage that? How do you make decisions without data? How do you ensure that once you have made these decisions, that you're able to accurately assess these risks moving forward, and keep a track on these? Keep a track on those customers where you're not really sure what will happen. You also will run into situations which you would do here in the US as well, where it's an entirely new business, and there is no possibility of data at all. So how do you make those decisions, especially in an unfamiliar environment like a new country? So those are some of the key factors that bring bring risk in an unfamiliar territory. So the next thing we'll do, we'll get into our considerations to mitigate risk. Excuse me. So we'll get into that. It's very important to be proactive. So as we were saying or showing you before you even get into understanding what the areas are, you need to understand what brings about the risk. So we'll basically be tying the items that we talked about before to these areas now. So there's a few things that we definitely would recommend companies to focus on, so that you're able to effectively be proactive about managing risk in these areas. Whether you're doing business globally, like you have offices in different countries, or even if you ship to other countries. So we have customers that they don't necessarily operate in those countries, but they do have a supply chain where they deliver those countries. So it's important to understand those items and be proactive about that risk. So one is obviously building relationships. So as you would in any country, you need to have an effective understanding of who are the people that you're dealing with. How do I effectively work with these people? This goes back to the conversation we were having about culture. You won't be able to build relationship if you don't understand the culture. So it's really important to understand that. It's really important to understand how how you need to get the work done. We do see companies not put a lot of emphasis on that. So we really need to focus on that. If you have to become a truly global and effective organization, then learning customs. Your product will ship in and out, so you have to understand the nuances of customs, whether it's checking not doing business with countries on the OFAC list, or fraudulent customers that may give you incorrect shipping addresses, or start up fake companies to get your product. So that's really important too. We'll get into some of that, how we've been able to actually address that. Learning the language goes back to our point. You can't really operate in a company if you don't know the language. So how do you hire for that? How do you make sure that you're able to how do you make sure that you're able to effectively hire people that can speak the language and also communicate with people on the other side, right? Researching the country and political risk. This is important, goes back to our earlier point. You don't only want to look at the political landscape now, but also try to assess what will happen in the political landscape in the future. So being able to understand, where this will go, how it may affect what exactly you need to, how it will affect your business operations in the future. So that's really important as well. You also need to make use of the data that you may have. So using country risk reports, so different companies, Moody's, Fitch, or S&P, they will produce country risk scores for different countries, using that to assess these, using trade reports for international businesses, companies like Coface, Euler Hermes, Business Intelligence Brief. We talked about the OFAC list, or the restricted list from the Department of Commerce as well. So there is data available. Obviously, it's not as robust, but you also need to, and we'll get into this. You also need tools that can aggregate this data and are able to give you a holistic view of the customer. And then you also need to be active in industry credit groups. So you want to, and this goes back to building relationships, right? If you're doing business in a country, you need to find the people that are doing similar business than you, that do business with your customer, then talk to them to understand how they are effectively managing credit. It's different for each country or each region, and it's very important to go and understand and talk to people. It's equally as important here, even in an environment in the US where we have data available. Companies still put a lot of emphasis on industry credit groups, but more so in areas where you do not have information, or even here you have industries that may not have that much information. So you want to be able to participate in these groups where you're able to get the data, not just on customers, but also strategies, right? You are able to learn new strategies on how your competitors or like businesses are operating in that region, and then use those strategies to apply that to your business. Goes back to building relationships, understanding the culture as well. So that's really important. we really recommend that you go and try to find like-minded companies or like-minded individuals in the credit industry where you're able to get this information from them. So yeah, this may come as no surprise to anybody, but this is a high-level country risk map. So some of this data, as I was saying, is available through through existing services. So what usually customers will do is use this data. So of course, these are, I mean, this is on a map, but the idea is that, for example, the US would get a AAA plus rating, where at this point, Iran would get like a C rating, right? So just an example from the map. So what you want to do is at a very high level, what would happen is you're trying to evaluate a customer, right? You see the countries that they operate in, you want to score that. You want to see, okay, if it comes from the greens, it's okay, but the yellows or the oranges, maybe it's medium risk, but for, the reds or the pinks, maybe it's high risk. So that's very important to be able to factor that in. Any company doing business internationally will take country risk into account, even if they're not, as I said, not operating in those countries and just shipping product to those countries. They will want to look at country risk so that they're able to effectively evaluate that. They also want to be able to factor this in with different restricted lists or OFAC lists or embargo lists, so that they're able to make sure that they're not doing anything illegal by shipping those countries, right? So you want to be very cognizant of that. All right. Now we will move on to actionable strategies for international credit. So what are some of the actionable strategies? And how can you standardize international credit to mitigate risk? So one overarching theme is that you need a global and integrated credit management infrastructure and solution. So any solution that, well, first of all, I'm sure everybody's aware here, you're not able to manage global credit risk manually. As you would imagine, it'd be very hard unless your business size is not that huge. So you obviously want to look at different solutions that are able to provide you with that sort of infrastructure. You also want a standardization of the credit risk assessment process. So you want to have a global policy for credit risk assessment, as well as nuances to those policies for different regions. If you don't have a standardized policy or it's not documented, you will never be able to implement a solution. But that, I mean, holds true for really any company, but it's more so applicable for companies that operate globally. It's very important for you to have a standardized policy that is documented, that everybody understands, everybody's on board with. And as I said, with different nuances for different countries. I'll just take a quick example. Like, for example, you may have a credit policy at the global level where you say that there needs to be effective document collection for a new customer, and there needs to be audit on who has the approval. But the nuance may be, okay, in the US, that data collection may mean that you're collecting a driver's license. Let's say in Europe, that data collection may mean that you are collecting, some other form of ID, or you're collecting financial statements. So policy stays the same. There are nuances to that where you may change that for different countries. You also want to have the ability to tie different customers together, as well as evaluate credit lines across multiple currencies. So, the challenge that you have is, the CFO wakes up, they want to be able to see, okay, how much credit have I extended across the world in USD, right? Or Euro, or GBP, or INR, or really whatever currency, right? Let's say you operate in 10 countries, right? And you are giving out 10 different currencies. How do you report on that? How do you make sure that you have an accurate view of the accurate view of your extended credit and what the risk looks like. So this goes back to the point of what we were talking about. Companies will manage an internal currency table so that they can effectively report on that and then plug that into any system so that it can do real-time conversions. Real-time conversions are very important. People that need these reports are not going to wait, never really. So you want to have, it's really important to effectively assess any solution that you get based on that. Or, you may want to pull that from, like a live data source as well. So really have that understanding as well. You want to also obviously be able to support different languages. So if you have like customer touch points, whether that be a front-end credit application, a payment portal, or really anything customer facing, collection emails, links, whatever you have, message templates, you want to have a solution that can support a multilingual system for your customers. So different languages must be able to be supported. They must be I18N compatible. So that basically is the standard for being able to support multilingual customer facing applications, and that you must evaluate for all customer facing applications. So your end customers will want to transact or do business in the language they're used to. You can't really train them. So it's really important there. You also want to be able to have the ability to convert multi-currency financials. Your customers are going to give you financials in their country, right? In their currency. And then you want to be able to see, all right, if I have to do analysis, do I have to convert it to my transaction currency? Do I convert it to my reporting currency? How am I able to do that? You obviously don't want to put that burden on the customer, right? So you need tools that are able to effectively do that for you. And finally, assessing country risk factors. So this goes back to our slide from before, where we were talking about having a sense of what the country risk is, having a sense of how you can put that into a scoring model, and how you can tie that into risk evaluation, not just one time, but continuously. You're able to do that and able to understand that. Moving on, what are the benefits of implementing a credit application tool? So, and this ties into not just global credit, but all types of credit. But the idea is that you have the biggest key factor is reducing the back and forth, right? You want to have upfront collection of prospect data so that you're not having to go back and forth with them. Hey, customer, I don't have your full address, or I don't have your full business information. I don't have your signatures properly, this, that. So you want to really be able to have a solution that eliminates all of that. Registration verification, whether that's in the US or really anywhere in the world. Is this company actually registered with the government to ensure accurate legal entity and owner information? Who are the owners? Are these people legitimate? Should I be doing business with them? Validating their bank account information so that you don't have any NSFs or no failed payments. Having driver's license verification or ID verification for different countries. So we do see different countries have different types of ID verification, where they're able to put in different types of verification methods and get them validated. So it differs by country, but you want to have a solution that can take these items. One of the more important things that we've been seeing is the fraud prevention and alerting. So being able to track fraud at the get-go for identifying suspect credit applications or suspect customers, right? Things like, for example, some of the things that we see, right, are, let's say that you have a customer that's telling you their office is in Paris, right? but they are, we check the IP and they're actually sitting in North Korea. So that's probably not good. You need to look into that, right? But these things at scale are very hard to do if you don't have a solution that does that for you. Even other items that you may not even be able to track, like IP network scores or IP blacklisting, if this IP has engaged in fraud before. Does the phone number belong to this business? Does the email belong to this business? When was this domain last created? See, if a customer is telling you they've been in business 20 years, but their email domain was created yesterday, that's probably a red flag, right? That's a big red flag. So these kind of items that can alert you to, for fraud prevention is very important. Obviously, with all of this, you are adding value because you're reducing high volume repetitive tasks. You also are reducing incorrect setup of customer master data or payment methods. And ultimately, what this also does is it streamlines new customer setup and maintenance. It is a better experience for your customers if they can give you all the information in one shot, and they're able to be able to effectively provide you this information, and you're able to effectively evaluate them. This also leads to faster approval times, right? You're able to take this information and quickly approve credit without any issues, without really wasting time on tasks that can easily be automated, right? So document delivery or collection, references, financial statement analysis, scoring. I mean, these are all tasks that can easily be done by a solution, and you want to be able to look into a solution that can do that for you. Finally, how do you have enhanced evaluations, scoring, and guidelines? I mean, of course, it's in this day and age, integrations are key. You can't factor in all this data yourself, so you want to be able to have a solution that can pull in data from various sources. So whether it's able to send data directly to your ERP system to create the account or recognize payments, whether it's able to collect data from different credit bureaus like CreditSafe, DNB, Experian, or any source really, any different sources, fraud prevention platforms. Connect with your sales team CRM, tax software, UCC filings, e-commerce platforms, different payment processors that you may use. Any solution that you may evaluate needs to have these items, so that you're able to, you can't do credit in a black hole. It's not possible. You need different data sources to have an understanding of credit risk, so that you're able to effectively evaluate your customer. That cannot happen unless you get in data from different sources. So really important to have that. And then another great strategy for improving risk management when operating in a global environment is having automated credit reviews. So how are you able to do that? Again, goes back to the data, pattern matching, and having an understanding of risk. Once you have an understanding of your risk parameters, any solution that you may get should have the ability for you to be able to configure those risk parameters, right? You want to have the ability to configure those risk parameters and say, if it meets these risk parameters, start a review, right? What are those things? AR-based reports, credit limit utilization, past due balance, payment behavior, right? If a customer pays me usually 30 days late, right? That's fine. They've been doing that 10 years. Now they start paying me 60 days late. That's a problem. Or maybe you set review dates, or maybe you set it on, exposure. So, if they're within, like, let's say 90% of the exposure, schedule a credit review. Then once the credit review is triggered, you're able to assign and notify credit manager. This whole process should also be able to be fully automated. So we have customers that do that, where they're able to get of what we call our instant decision management, where they're able to tie this. So even this part, like, we would only assign and notify credit manager if our automated approval fails. So that, my point being, this process should be able to be fully automated as well, or in cases where you're not able to approve it through automation. For example, maybe data is not available, right? There's no data available at that time. Maybe the risk scores that you have configured for auto approval are not being met, right? Yeah, let's say that you, let's say on a scale of 1 to 10, right? You said, okay, if a customer meets a 5-year approval, maybe they met a 4. So in that case, the credit manager should do some additional evaluation, maybe reduce the credit line, things of that sort. And then update this in your ERP as well. And then finally, how this looks in a electronic environment. So, I mean, this is just an example of how you're able to manage these currency rates, how you're able to manage, these country risks, scores, and then tie that in. And obviously, financials are very important. So having that, having a robust financial statement analysis solution, setting up discount factors for all of these items is key too. But it's kind of hard to go through like the entire solution in one slide. So I mean, this is just a really high level of what, how exactly that would go. But yeah, I mean, that was really that brings us to the end of the presentation. We really appreciate you guys taking out the time here today to speak with us. I'm going to pass it back to Nikki now, who will take over and go through the questions in the chat and go through that.
Thanks so much, Ali. Yeah, if anyone has any questions, please put them in the chat now. If there's anything that Ali, you yourself considered that you wanted to go back and dive in on, this is also now the time to do that. But yeah, we're waiting for your, I'm here, I've got the chat open. If anyone has any questions, please let me know. All right. Ali, it doesn't look like anyone is typing anything and there are no questions right now. Do you want to go ahead and give our contact information and talk about that? Because if anyone has any questions later, we're more than happy to answer them.
Yeah, for sure. So we'll be sharing these slides. So, as it'll have my contact information. So I'll be able to answer any product related or any process related questions for you. We have 2 offices. We have one here in the Chicagoland area in Schaumburg, and then we have one in India. So, anytime you guys want to contact us or me, on any questions that you may have, feel free to do that, and we'll be able to help you out, no problem. But yeah, we'll share these slides after the chat, and we'll go from there. We actually have a question.
We do have a question. So Silva asks, one of the main challenges we have is assessing customers who do not disclose financial statements. Do you have any recommendations on how to overcome that?
Sure, yeah. So this goes back to our, actually, let me go back to, where was this? This goes back to our point on like understanding the culture and how you can make accurate decisions. In those cases, usually what we see customers do are either try to get public or not public, but data from international credit reports or understand from industry credit groups. What we also see customers doing is that you can set a policy to say, hey, if you don't disclose financial information, this is the maximum we can give you in terms of credit. And then after that, if you need more, if you need a larger credit line, then we're going to need this additional piece of information. Usually what we see customers do.
Great. So we do have another question. Credit agencies are usually using data from the past, previous payment experience, etc. Are you aware of any solutions using data analytics predicting credit worthiness in the future?
Yeah, for sure. So goes back to our point of talking about pattern recognition, right? You can use different sources of data that you may have to recognize patterns for the future, as well as using predictive analytics. Use the ability to say, okay, I have this set of data in the past, customers with this set of data or similar set of data perform like this. How can I put that to used there. So, I mean, we do that a lot. We do that for a lot of our customers in industries where they don't have a lot of information. So there's really no way for them to make this assessment. So the idea there is we would work with them to understand what they think are success factors, right? What they think are factors for success, where they think that, okay, even though it's a new customer, these are the characteristics of a good customer in the absence of information. So we help customers do that. But what I want to really preface here is that there is no magic bullet, right? There is no solution or a magic bullet that will accurately assess this at all times. The idea of this is that you would work with like the vendor or the solution to define what you think success looks like and model that. And then you have a confidence rate, or you have a rate of error there, but that's how it would go, basically. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, we have a thumbs up there, so yes.
Thank you.
All right. Looks like that's about it for today. Again, if anyone has any questions that you think of later, we'll be sharing these slides. The webinar will be recorded, so you're welcome to that as well. And we're obviously always here and available at Vectren. I'll turn it back over to you, Beth. Thanks so much.
Great. Thank you, Nikki, and thank you, Ali, for that wonderful presentation. I just wanted to add that ICTF does have international credit reports that are freshly investigated. We also offer several different industry groups. So if you want any information on that, just contact us. We'd be happy to discuss that with you. Also look at our calendar for upcoming symposiums, programs, and online courses. We have a 6-hour online course for customer financial statement analysis coming up in 2 weeks. And we also have registration open now for our international symposiums. In October, we're going to be in Porto, Portugal. And our annual global symposium is in Fort Lauderdale in November. Again, these are great opportunities for networking and education. If you have any questions whatsoever, I'm available. My email is Beth, beth.smith@ictfworld.org. The webinar has ended. You may now disconnect. Thank you, everyone.